This episode is brought to you by BeWaterSmart.info. Make your trees summer strong by watering them slowly and deeply using a soaker hose or drip irrigation at least once a month. Learn more ways to make your yard summer strong at BeWaterSmart.info.
Look at that plant. I want you to know that everything was grown in my garden. Don't touch that plant!
Is it poisonous?
She'll become part of the plant.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Garden Hour. I'm your host, Marlene.
And I'm your co-host, Bruce.
And this is your October to-do list and your question and answers. Well, your questions and it's our answers, but whatever. You know what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay, so Bruce, I know my October to-do list, and we're just going to go through this. I just do want to point out once again, remember, we are coming from Zone 9B.
Right.
So if you're in a different zone, this may be a little bit different. And to find out your USDA zone, I think you just go to usda.gov and probably type in garden zone, and your zone will come up.
And if you live in Fairbanks, Alaska, you can tune in our June segment, and that will be like what to plant in June when you actually have no snow.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you're just probably several months behind. Yes.
Or ahead, depending on the time of year.
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, if I had to move to a different zone, it would be all new learning for me.
Yes.
Yeah, which would be fun. Trial and error.
And there are plenty of things, all kidding aside, that you can grow in Alaska that grow very beautifully, that if you try to grow in our zone 9B, you will be a failure. So enjoy what you have.
Exactly. And I'm glad we have Zone 9B. So with that, let's talk about what we need to do. So I'm just going to go through the list of veggie plantings. And I get this from the Sacramento County Master Gardener's Planting Guide. It's pretty much the best one out there. They go over what months to plant things, whether to plant it in as a plant, direct sow. It's tried, true for years. And so we'll just go through it. Fava beans, direct sow, or if you find plants. Carrots, we've all agreed that cheaper, easier to direct sow with seed. Garlic, I'm going to let you handle that one if you have experience. Kale, direct sow or plants. Kohlrabi, same. Lettuce, same. Mustard, plants or seeds. Onion seeds and then onion sets.
Right.
Peas, radishes, direct sow, seed. Spinach, plants or seeds, and turnips.
That's bigger than my list. Let's talk about onion seed sets and garlic.
Okay.
So what I have found is one of the biggest problems with getting onions from either seed or set is that onions have a response to day length.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get the wrong type of sets, and often you will find in the store no indication if they're long day, short day, or intermediate, then you might end up getting lots of green onions, which is great because scallions are very expensive right now. But you may never get onions, or you might get them much later than you think you should, or they might start to form too early and there won't be enough growth on top to support them. So I will say that just when you get onions, seeds, and sets, check to see the variety and look up the variety online and see if it is a short, long, or intermediate day. Now, remember, we're heading into short days. So that means that short day onions will start to bulb up in short days, and long day onions require more day length before they start to make bulbs. So if you plant a long day variety in the fall, you might not get onions until June or never if the plants just don't last that long. So that's just something to be aware of. I've never grown garlic, but I used to have a plot in the community garden, and people were growing garlic. They just basically bought garlic sets from the garden stores, and planted them in spring and harvested them in fall.
Yeah, I don't use enough garlic. Like I'll buy a clove of garlic and it goes to waste because I just don't use it. So I've never grown. And I should say I do grow it at work. We have it at work, but I don't do anything. So I've never harvested. It just grows like as a perennial.
And I will say with garlic, everyone says, well, why don't I just take the garlic that I bought in the store and plant it? It's so much cheaper. And on the one hand, that might work fine, but they are not guaranteed to be disease-free when you buy them in the stores. They're for eating, not for growing.
Yeah.
And you may end up putting virus garlic in your garden, which
That's
might
true.
render your area not suitable for growing anything in that family for a while.
Yeah, and it's similar to, potato starts because you can do that. And
Exactly.
garlic, we've all had garlic sprouting in our fridge, just like you've had potatoes sprouting in your fridge. And
Right.
so I just don't go through that much garlic. It's a pretty plant because it's an allium, an onion
Yeah.
relative, so it has the big flowers, and that's what we have right now in the garden is just these dried giant flower stalks. And if I'm sure I dug in there, I think it was actually the elephant garlic, the really large
Right.
garlic. I should grow it just for growing sake, but I just don't grow that. I don't use that much garlic.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I do cook with garlic, but I'll buy like the 5 clove little sack of
Mhm.
5 bulb sack
Yeah.
of garlic, and like you say, it'll be mush before I get to the last one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know like if you store it and it stays dry, but still. But that's one where I can't really help out too much, but it is the time for it. So,
Right.
and I do want to say for your fava beans, if you're growing them as a cover crop, that's different than if you're growing to harvest. You can still plant them at the same time, and this goes for any of your cover crops. But fava beans tend to be the most edible one. If you're growing them, remember you have to chop them down while they're flowering. You can't reap the benefits of the nitrogen and harvest them as well. But right now is a good time to start cover crops.
Right. And that's an interesting point about fava beans, which I call fava beans. It's a synonym of favor, as in don't do me any favors by giving me fava beans.
Uh-huh.
There is a disease that people, when they're younger, are more susceptible to. It's called favism. And it's a metabolic disease where people are not able to, I think, process or in some way use the favas, the proteins in the fava bean, and it actually can cause brain disorders or
What?
mental disorders.
What?
And if you look up favism and not
Okay.
favoritism,
Yeah.
and it is something. So, and sometimes you'll see the warnings, and sometimes you don't.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's a disease from people who eat fava beans who are not able to process them properly.
Interesting. Did not
Yeah.
know that. Luckily I don't have that. Yeah. Look
No,
at all these
rare.
random facts that you know.
That's right.
Yeah, look at that.
One full of facts, one full of fun facts.
Yeah. Okay, so that's vegetables. Now let's go into fall bulbs. I know you have a lot to say on this one.
I do. That's my favorite topic
I know.
because being from a place where bulbs grow well, I still, you can take the person out of the east, but you can't take the east out of the person. I love bulbs, and especially, even though we're not cold here, after a long winter, it's really great when you have tons of bulb sprouting. The thing about the bulbs is that a lot of them require cold in order to bloom well.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not that cold here. That's both good and bad. Daffodils here are fine. You can ignore when they say the zones on the daffodils and in the descriptions. Just ignore the zones. They don't require the cold in the same way, let's say, tulips do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
hyacinths are iffy. Hyacinths, I don't refrigerate my hyacinths unless they come before I have a chance to plant them. But hyacinths, I don't bother chilling. But tulips, especially the ones that the big flowers that Marlene loves so much. Tulips require that you chill them. And if you don't chill them, you may get flowers, but you may end up with, 1/3 of them will flower and not very well.
Yeah. So if you're going to the nursery, whatever bulbs they have now, they're going to be your early spring, your fall planting bulbs. I mean, plant them now. And then if you come across tulips and hyacinths, it's a good idea to stick them in your fridge for a couple weeks before you plant them.
Right.
And then, technically then you're supposed to dig them up the following years, but
yeah. Tulips, you will find if you plant 100 tulips, and there are certain varieties that seem to do better. They're called the sheeper varieties.
Mm-hmm.
They're all related to I forgot the original tulip was a yellow tulip. It might have been called something sheeper, but in any case, those seem to be more perennial in our climate. But I'll say you plant 100, and then you might find that 30 will come up year after year, and the rest never will. But those 30 will be, reliable.
Mhm.
Strangely enough.
And then, of course, one little tidbit: when you put them in the fridge, not freezer, fridge to chill, you don't want to. You don't want them by your apples and
No.
your fruit because those will put off ethylene gas, which is your death hormone. for your plants. It just speeds up the process. So it'll cause them
For
to
your
break.
flowers.
Yes, it'll cause them to break dormancy quicker. And you don't want them to break dormancy now. You want them to
Right.
chill, go in the ground, continue to chill, and then grow. So just don't have any fruit in there with them.
There is a fun thing you can do with your tulips if you don't have a lot of space, and if you just like tulips, you can plant them in a shallow pot with the top of the bulb just showing, and put in your fridge for about, what is it, 16 weeks, right, Marlene? To force them.
To force them. Yeah. Yeah. For the.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then when it's time to take them out, it will be cool enough here that you can put them outside in the pod and enjoy them, or
Yeah.
put them in a cool room.
Well, I mean, that's the idea behind, paper whites is, and
Right.
you don't, it doesn't need to be that long even for like paper whites. It's,
Right.
if you get them now, you pull them out in a couple of weeks and have them blooming for Christmas.
And paper whites are perfectly hardy here, so it's also nice. Some of the paper whites will bloom in the late fall and winter. There's a lot of varieties
There's a
actually
lot
of
of
what we call
varieties.
paper whites.
Yeah. Some of them won't rebloom though. Some of them
Sorry?
don't. Some of them don't rebloom at all.
No, it really depends on the variety.
Yeah.
I've moved into a house that had hundreds of paper whites planted.
Uh-huh.
I got around 20 or so would bloom
Yeah.
each year.
Yeah.
But there are varieties that
Yeah, a lot of
bloom in
them
the fall.
start up really early outside. Okay, so that's bulbs, perennials, and trees. So temperatures are cooling down, but it's still warm enough to plant and get their roots established before cold. If you're planting anything that's potentially frost sensitive, you want to do it now and you don't want to wait any longer. So pretty much any perennials, any trees, it's a great time to plant. It's still warm, but not so dang hot.
Right.
So-
And that will reduce the transpiration off the leaves.
Mhm.
And that way they're not drawing as much water. And so you can get good root growth without having
Yeah.
to constantly water.
Yes. Yeah. It helps you too. That's why I like winter, like vegetable. We had rain the past few days and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, my irrigation, I need to fix that. And that started raining. I'm like, no, I don't. Yay. But I mean, be careful because if you plant something, then it rains for a bit. Really, it's not heavy rain to even, at work, our potted plants with large bushy coverings, that rain did not penetrate into the pot. And then it's going to warm
Right.
back up into the 80s. So you don't want to just assume, oh, it's cooled down and it rained. I don't need to water this, that, and the other thing. But so, it's sort of a false sense of security, like, oh, I could cut back the watering completely. So for a lot of things you can, but you still want to be careful, especially things in pots.
Right. I mean, if you have hanging baskets, those tend to dry out pretty quickly. And you
Yes.
may say, oh, they're great, like you said. And then you say, well, I'm going to ignore them for a week. And then you come back and they're dead
Yeah.
because they just dried out.
Yeah, I actually watered the outside area today at work because I was going to have a student and I'm like, it's just going to be much quicker and I'll be more confident if I'm watering because I know exactly what to look for. A lot of times the students go, oh, it's raining, so I don't need to water outside. I'm like, there are 2 raindrops.
Yeah,
And
here when it rains for 5 minutes in July, it's like, oh my gosh, it's raining.
Rain in July, that's crazy. But yeah, the September rain always gets it. It's like, it's raining, we don't need to water. No, not necessarily. Clean up garden time.
Yes.
Yes. So that means pulling out any old veggies that are done. Your tomatoes and peppers and eggplants, they could go until the first frost. And then some, even if you're in a warm area where, your backyard doesn't get hit by the frost. But if you're tired of them or potential disease or you need space, go ahead and remove them. You could start cutting back your perennial herbs, clean up old fruit. Here's the thing, don't prune because it's still too early don't prune your trees. Don't do heavy pruning on shrubs. And you definitely don't want to prune your once blooming spring plants. So you don't want to prune your camellias right now. You don't want to prune your hydrangeas all the way down. You don't want to prune your forsythias.
Or your azaleas.
Anything that bloomed in the spring and that's it. Like your quince, you don't want to prune now because it's already set the flowers for spring. So you're going to be pruning off any buds. And that's very sad if you were to do that. Oh.
Then you'd be sad because then you'd send us a letter saying, how come our azalea bloom this year?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would be an easy answer. Did you prune it? Yes. Well, there you go.
There you go. There you
You
have it.
you could start digging up and dividing certain perennials like grasses and agapanthus and tuberous plants like that are getting too big and you want to make smaller. It's cool enough, but it's still warm enough where you could dig them up and separate them. So a lot of those plants don't care either.
Yes, because you'll find that if you have a very successful perennial garden, one plant becomes an enormous specimen, and then it gives you the opportunity to spread it to other parts of your garden.
There you go. Or get rid of it completely.
Or if it's a daylily, but you said, it was really pretty flower, but boy, those are high maintenance, which is a misnomer that daylilies are low maintenance.
Oh, some of them are. The yellow Stella d'Oro one that was planted everywhere. Remember that
Right.
yellow orange? I think it was Stella d'Oro. It was everywhere. If there was ever like a plant to make someone not want to grow a type of plant, I think that was it. I think
They are everywhere.
those ones are everywhere. If you have high pH and you want sulfur-loving plants like your azaleas, like camellias, now is the time to add soil sulfur, fall and spring, to drop that pH. It's a long, slow process. I don't recommend doing it to the whole entire yard. But if you have something in a pot or you just want to change your hydrangeas from pink to blue, this is the time to add it before the rains come.
Now, just for those who might not know, high pH is alkaline and low pH is acid.
Mm-hmm.
And neutral water, which is theoretically what you might get out of the tap, theoretically, is 7. So it's a weird scale, but 7 is neutral, 0 is very acidic, 14 is very alkaline.
Yes. And most plants prefer acidic. And I'm not anywhere near that. You are.
I'm sort of sometimes some parts of my garden are more acidic, some are more alkaline.
Yeah, we have your soil substrate sort of as just a base pH, and then your water. And then so if you keep watering, that's why it's nice about rainwater, because it tends to be acidic.
Now, when you're adding sulfur,
Mm-hmm.
should I just add that powdered sulfur to my soil?
No, the pelletized, so it's slow.
Ah.
Yeah, and it doesn't gunk up.
Right.
Yeah,
it looks like little
in.
lentils.
It does look like little lentils. Don't eat it. Don't eat it, Bruce.
Them.
Don't eat it.
Make soup out of them.
Don't make soup. No.
Makes a delicious curry.
No. It would give the color of curry, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's sort of very clean when you add sulfur dust is of course very messy, but the sulfur pellets are nice and clean, and it's really easy to put down.
Yeah. Yeah, you just want to mix it into the top and that a few inches, that's it. Add nematodes, and you might be thinking, oh my God, nematodes are bad. No, there are good nematodes. And if you've had a problematic pest in your garden, there's a good chance there might be a beneficial nematode that might control it. So it's pests that have a stage, usually it's a larval stage or an immature stage in the soil. And then the adults come out of that. So if that's the pest you're looking at, unfortunately, that's not whiteflies. And so, but there are nematodes, and nematodes are microscopic little worms. And if you go online, I like Arbico Organics because they have different strains of nematodes packaged as one. They'll list if this is your problematic pest, here are the nematodes you want to get. And so say you had a cucumber beetle problem, you add it, and then it's going to attack the larval stage. So
you'll put it right in the soil.
Sort of mix it into the soil. Yeah. Yeah, mix it in.
That's nice. It's certainly easier than ladybugs, which you put on and then you watch them fly away to your neighbor's yard.
Or they just die. Yeah, no,
Right.
I mean, the best thing with ladybugs is just having a healthy garden, because now they know that a lot of ladybugs are just harvested out in the wild. Mm-hmm. And they're potentially bringing in diseases from those areas and could be spreading them to the ladybugs in our area. So it's all bad.
I did not know they harvested them in the wild.
Did you not ever see the Huell Hauser episode?
No.
No, Huell Hauser went out and followed some guy who harvested ladybugs. It was crazy. Like, he just moved this log and they were there. And that's what they did. They harvested them. And of course, Huell was like, that's amazing. You know who Huell Hauser is, right? You're back from back east, so PBS, California's Gold. Joe is shaking his
I'm
head right
embarrassed
now.
to say no. I'm
Oh
not
my
a true
gosh.
Californian. Therefore,
No,
I
you're
do
not. No, you're
know.
not true. You have that excuse at least. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, we'll have to watch some of his episodes. He's hilarious. He's passed away sadly, but
Oh,
yeah. But anyways, he did an episode on where they harvested ladybugs, and it was pretty cool. But then now that the science is, well, you're taking them from this environment, bringing them in, whatever. Anyways, it's just not sustainable. It's not healthy. And they do just fly away. So you want the ladybugs to come to your yard and establish there on their own.
and I have found that when it's high summer or when it starts to be warm enough, that if you have plants with aphids on them, the ladybugs do seem to find it and they do lay their eggs. And it's amazing what natural control without having to add the ladybugs
Oh,
can
yeah.
do. That you just find them and they'll devour.
Oh, yeah.
They'll clean off a nice chrysanthemum plant if that's infested in a week.
Yeah, yeah. And there's other things working. It's not just the ladybugs, but yeah,
Right.
like nematodes. That's what we're, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So since it is getting cooler and there's rain, move succulents that are susceptible to winter rot away from rain. Say that 3 times fast.
We'll make some winter rot.
No, you have to say winter rot away from rain 3 times fast.
We'll skip that.
No, we'll skip that. Okay, and the reason I'm thinking of this is because we have a whole bunch outside. The overhang got destroyed, and for 2 years I've been trying to rebuild this overhang. And last year we had to put plastic over it because succulents don't want their roots wet. Yes, in the wild, in native areas, there's rain, but they're in such fast draining soil and their roots are spread out because they're not in these little pots. So if you have something in a pot, especially if it's heavier soil and it rains, that's what's going to rot them away. So if it's simple as just taking the pots, moving them, put them on an underhang where they're not going to get flooded for rain.
And when you live in areas where it gets cold in the winter, like the East Coast, it's cold and wet.
Mm-hmm.
And you can grow plenty of cacti that are hardy to 10 degrees, but what kills them is not the cold, it's the wet.
Yep.
It goes to 10 degrees, the plants freeze, they're perfectly happy. Then about a week later, it's 38 degrees or 40 degrees. The ground gets mushy, and that's where the damage comes from. I used to grow lots and lots of hardy cacti outside in the East Coast, and I actually had to cover them not to protect them from the cold, but from the wet.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of these plants will tolerate the cold, the freeze. It's just that. And the same here. I mean, it doesn't get as cold, but it's still the wet then with it. Anything else you want to add?
Well, sure. Of course, I'm being the houseplant guy. Say if your houseplants are outside, you got to start getting ready to bring them inside. Now, there's outside. They have a lot of natural control of the predators of the insects. But once you bring them inside, there is no predatory predatory insect control. So you have to maybe spray them before you bring them in. I recommend do not spray with systemics, but just use a surface insecticide like some people use neem oil. I prefer insecticidal soap.
Yeah.
And the reason I say don't use systemics is they tend not to kill spider mites. And then so the spider mites come inside and say, we're free.
Yeah.
And then they infest very quickly.
Yeah.
Spider mites can really take over before you even notice
Well, I mean, the good news is there are no systemics available on the market anymore. But if you have them, right, they've been all banned, the neonicotinoids and systemics. Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. But people still may have them. But it is true that they're not a miticide. So, they're a pesticide, but spider mites are true spiders, and you need a miticide, which is impossible to find just an organic one.
Oh yeah, these days you can't find them at all. I've noticed the ones you find are just they seem to be ineffective. Is what I would say.
Sulfur dust was the go-to and still my go-to for spider mites. That if you want to knock them down, but don't apply it inside. So this is where the sulfur dust works. You apply it outside. And so it could go everywhere.
Right. And you can spray insecticidal soap indoors in a special, I wouldn't spray it in the middle of your kitchen because if nothing else, it stinks.
Yeah, it does smell.
But it's safe.
Yeah. Yeah, the key with spider mites is continuously trying to just knock them off. A one time is not going to work.
Right.
Even if you do the sulfur, it's going to kill the adults, but there's eggs there that it's doing nothing for. Then the eggs hatch, and then there they are.
I will generally, starting around now, spray outside every 5 days or so for the spider mite. It's mostly for the spider mites. I mean, I'm sure there's some scale and mealybugs, but that's much easier to manually control. I recommend a pump, not a pump sprayer, not a spray bottle like you get your Windex.
Like a gallon pump sprayer.
And the reason for that is that most of the spider mites are under the leaves. And if you take your Windex sprayer bottle and turn it upside down, nothing comes out. And so you will tend to just, it's too much trouble, and you will not get at them. So,
and I always recommend get a hand lens, because you're not going to see the spider mites unless you look really close. And even then it might be hard. So hand lens, turn the leaf over. You're going to see slight cobwebbing, stippling of the leaf. And then when you look, you're going to see, and the most common spider mite we have is a 2-spot spider mite. And there are literally 2 spots on it. They are spiders, so they have 8 legs. If you have the cobwebbing going across the whole entire plant, that's really bad. You got to just blast that off with the hose.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can see the damage from the spider mites much more easily than you'll see the spider mites. I mean, you'll say, okay, this is spider mites.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a magnifier, don't worry. If you see what looks like spider mite damage, it probably is.
Yeah, it's a good idea to get them before you get that damage, though. That's what I'm saying. Spect, right.
And those of us who like alocasia plants may decide that we will not bring them inside this winter because they are spider mite magnets. It's just amazing.
They're equal opportunity pests, but they definitely have their favorites. Alocasias, plumarias, crotons, other aeroids.
I was just going to say, strangely enough, I have, not a zillion alocasias, but around 6 or 7. And most of them are clean, except for Alocasia Sarayan, which is a nice one, but which is completely infested. So that's now become an outdoor plant.
There you go.
Which may not, but I don't know why they like that specific species better, but that seems to be the one that my infestations start from.
I mean, we have plants in the conservatory that I could count when I monitor. I'm like, that one, I know we'll have spider mites. One next to it, none at all. So it's, I guess they are probably are more specialized than, like mealybugs and stuff.
Just as a very quick aside, I do recall we had a orchid that was completely infested with that. I call it Bois Duval scale in the French accent.
Yes.
But the anthurium that had taken root inside that pot was completely clean, yet the orchid was almost on death's door. So it's just very interesting how the plants will have a certain, but the insects of a certain plant, they just love.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, it's like why we love certain food.
Yeah, chocolate. The aliens don't understand why they just throw chocolate out, and the humans just follow the chocolate until they can be abducted.
Exactly. To serve man.
So I would add a couple of things.
Okay.
Aside from the houseplant issue, I think this is a great time to take stock of what worked and what didn't work. For instance, I have dahlias, and I had an area where the trees were, they were pretty high over, but come the high summer, the sun is high, and so they were getting too much shade.
Yeah.
I had one dahlia that was just in a totally different spot, which right now it's thriving, and it's stocky growth. It barely even needs staking. The flowers are bigger, the leaves are healthier. So you might say, well, this plant did really poorly in this area. Is it the soil? Is it something about that area, lighting, water, whatever, that it's not really doing well there? But maybe I'll move it. Maybe I'll find another space. So I think that's really worth figuring out this time of year.
I mean, that's gardening in a nutshell, right? Just troubleshoot, trying different things. And speaking of dahlias, right now is the time to order your dahlia tubers.
Yes, and they can range in price from cheap to insane.
Yes, because I'm going to try to do a big dahlia bed. And another thing is to do my dahlia bed, we're lucky enough where we have 2 main seasons of weeds. And I want to plant my dahlias in March and get a head start without the winter weeds. So right now, if you have an area that you want to plant and you don't want winter weeds, start laying that cardboard down now and covering it. And then by the time it's time to plant, you don't have the weeds and you have that cardboard probably broken down with the compost broken down. So I'm going to add compost. I'm going to add the cardboard to get that area primed and ready for planting.
And if you're having trouble finding cardboard, go to your friendly neighborhood bicycle shop and just become a pest and ask them for boxes as they get bikes, and bikes come in these big cardboard
they do.
boxes, and they just toss them out. And if you have a place where you know you can go dumpster diving, but it's nice to ask first.
Yeah, someone may already have claims on that cardboard dumpster. Okay, so hands off my cardboard dumpster. Okay,
and then you get these enormous boxes, and you say, "Oh, 3 of them is going to cover my garden," and then you bring it back, and they shrink in size the second they go onto your garden. It's a very strange process,
and they do break down much quicker than. As soon as the rain hits and like compost hits, they break down really quick.
So my understanding is you put your cardboard on, and then you put your compost over the cardboard.
Yeah, so it doesn't blow away.
Right.
Yeah, and then you have it.
It looks better.
It looks better, and you have the smothering of the weeds right there versus
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, cardboard. If you leave cardboard out in the sun, if you were to put your cardboard on the top, we don't rain every day in the winter, and we'll have periods where it's dry, and that cardboard just dries up and it warps and everything, and it does not look pretty.
No.
And your neighbors will, if you live in an HOA, expect.
Oh my God, I don't think you're even allowed. We're not even going to go there.
Right. Which we'll be discussing HOAs later.
Yeah, we will be. That's correct.
So another thing I would just add is if your leaves are falling, you should enjoy the leaves, and then maybe run them through a chopper or something and just place it right on your vegetable garden or anywhere that's not going to be used this winter, so that it can work into the soil.
Yeah. And, it used to be, clean everything up, make your garden sterile because everything could lead to pests. And now, it's funny how now there's a big push. Oh, don't clean your garden up so much. And I'm like, well, we should know that as gardeners. I think most gardeners knew that. Don't get rid of all the sticks. Don't remove your sunflower stalks. Don't get rid of all the leaves. It's if you think there's a disease, yes, but there's a lot of beneficial insects, animals that overwinter and use all that material, nesting material, just food sources, like reproductive areas.
And I want to admit that when I installed my raised garden, which is not a raised bed, it's sort of like a walled garden of about 2 feet tall. The first year was great because everything was, nice, fresh soil. But this year, because I didn't throw the compost on last year, I think that's a big reason why. Last year I had like 7 or 8 7-pound melons, which were killed by a varmint. And this year I have no melons, and the plants are minuscule little nothings. And I've been watering and feeding, but I think that just melons love organic stuff in the soil, and I just don't think I had enough.
Yeah. If you don't replenish, it's
there
taking it. Yeah. Anything else, or should we move on to questions?
Let's see. I have a question that I was wondering about.
Okay.
I set up a compost heap and it didn't heat up. What gives?
Did you wet it?
No, but I just put leaves in, and the leaves were always cold. I thought it was going to smoke.
No, they just don't light up and be like, that was great. No.
I said, I put them, but so the reason I mentioned that is obviously that people will set up compost heaps and they expect them to smoke, and they don't always smoke, but they still are doing their job.
Yeah. There's, I had a wonderful person on with compost, and, he expert composter, gave all the rules, all the instructions, how to have beautiful compost. And what do? I am the laziest composter. It's pretty much just, this will be my compost area. Will I water it in the summer? No, it's just passive composting. It's like whatever happens, now it's going to get wet in the, in the winter, and just, it's going to break down over time. I am doing nitrogen and carbon because a lot of things I pull out, it's dead. And a lot of things I pull out have green leaf. So I think I'm balanced there, but I don't turn it for oxygen, and I don't water it in the summer. And if it's too big, it's not heating up. You're not getting it wet enough, or if it's too small, you're not generating that heat. So there's definitely a science to it, but
I'm also told that grass clippings are more likely to make it heat up quicker, but they don't necessarily last. But that green will heat up more than brown, so to speak.
Well, I think it's the brown is sort of what's giving the feeding the nitrogen there to break down. Yeah.
But the
So
green, I talked to a compost person recently, and he says, number one, it doesn't have to heat up. Number two, fresh green clippings like grass are typically what makes it get warm, but that's just not necessary. So there's cold composting and hot composting, apparently.
yeah, but the idea of composting is, yeah, it's gonna if you add the fifth, I think it's like what 80-20. I forget what the percentage is now. I don't know. But I didn't know the temperature that compost is supposed to heat up, and I got called out for that. And I said I could make it up on the fly, but I don't want to lie. And I also will admit I don't remember everything.
And I think the point is ultimately that your compost heap does not have to get hot. It's going to decompose. It might take longer depending on what you've got in there, but don't worry. It will do its job.
That's why I'm a big, like what you mentioned, when I'm pulling out my vegetable garden, if it's not diseased or full of pests, I cut it and I leave it right on top. And then the idea is you do then have to add nitrogen because it's using nitrogen and it's pulling the nitrogen to break it down. So if you do that, it's fine. But this way I don't have to put it in a pile. I don't have to turn it. I'm just adding it right there. And
of course, if you can do that, that's great.
Yeah.
Not all of us can, but.
No, yeah. And not everyone can have a compost pile too. I mean, as much as compost as I need, I'm not generating that much. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to questions.
Oh, can I just make one advice now that it's the fall?
Sure.
Make sure you purchase enough Halloween candy of your favorite flavor. Purchase twice as much as you want, and that way you will have enough after the trick-or-treaters come by.
I haven't had trick-or-treaters in years.
Well, you do live about a mile and a half from the nearest other home, don't you?
Yeah, so I just buy the candy and I go, oh my gosh, no trick-or-treaters came. I guess I have to eat all this.
So
every year.
Thing to do.
Every year it works. It's like, no, I mean, and also the no lights on and the big barricade saying don't come near this house. And then I wonder why I have to eat all the candy.
Big sign says, get off my lawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Just thought I'd put that out there. All right.
Okay. Question. All right. Would you know why my pink polka dot plant would be sprouting new leaves but soon turn brown and wilt? It also has a strong gnat issue, which I've tried fixing with cinnamon on the top of the soil. I water about once a week from the bottom. Thanks, Georgia. Would you like to take this?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's really a series of questions.
It is.
Think about it.
I know.
First of all, cinnamon will not treat fungus gnats. Cinnamon is an antifungal, but fungus gnats are not made of fungus, so it will not kill them. What we want to do if we're having a fungus gnat issue is maybe get at what the fungus gnats are feeding on.
Oh, do you think? Okay, I thought, okay, that's interesting. Maybe they think they're killing off the fungus by adding cinnamon on top.
Right, and we don't know for sure.
No, I thought they were using it as a desiccant
on the
soil.
Okay.
Yeah,
but
you're right. It could be the other way around. Yeah.
Right. Was that? So I wasn't sure if that was the question, but sure. So the question I will then ask Marlene back is that, well, will the cinnamon kill off the mold or fungus that the fungus gnats are feeding on, or are they even feeding on fungus?
No. So fungal gnats, it's the adults are not feeding on anything. It's the larvae, and they're feeding on organic matter, and also small feeder roots. So that's where the problem comes in. The adults aren't a problem. The problem with the adults is they're laying more eggs in your soil. And then the problem is that larvae stage where they will eat any organic matter, which is fine. But when they go to your little feeder roots, then that's where your plant could cause a problem. We see a lot of this in the research growth chambers because the researchers are not plant people. They're plant biologists, but on a cellular level. So they're growing their plants in standing water in peat moss, and you just open the chamber up and these flies just come out. Now there's fungal gnats and there's shore flies. But both act the same, and it's hard to tell apart. So our go-to at the research greenhouses for fungal gnats is about 1/2 inch of sand on top, because that will prevent the adults from going in. They want the moist, wet soil. That's the key, is they want a moist soil to lay their eggs in. So if you dry your plant out, not, to the point where it's drying, but most people overwater their soil, too heavy a peat. the adults won't go into the sand. And then, of course, we have them put yellow sticky traps around to
Right.
attract and kill the adults. So you curb the whole reproductive cycle.
And that's a nice low-tech answer for fungus gnats. I mean, there's also the Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, which is, they call it BTI. I don't know if you can buy that individually or not in local stores.
Yeah.
But you'll see BT is called, and it's used for a variety of different larval problems.
Yeah.
But it seems that they have it divided into the specific insect larva that's bothering your plants, and I'm not sure that's practical for us regular gardeners.
Yeah, that one's different because the most BT you get, you spray, it gets on the leaves, the animals chew the leaves. I don't know how this BT will work. It would have to get into where the organic material where the larvae are eating. So it has to get, you have to water it in, obviously. But the good news is there are nematodes that control. So, but really most people could curb the fungal gnats by watering less. Simple as that.
Yeah. And of course, the next question is, it's a polka dot plant, which is Hypoestes, I think.
Yeah.
And they're short-lived plants in general for many.
Yep.
And they like high humidity.
Yeah. Yeah, these they're super cute. You see them at the nurseries. They're sold as house plants, but they could grow as short-lived perennial / annuals in the shade during the summer. And then, when you get them, they're super pink, super compact. And then you put them in the house, not bright enough light inside, so they get leggy, stretched out, and then you cut them back to try to get them. They never look better. Once they lose that compactness.
Yeah, it's sort of like a great gift plant, like when you give someone a flowering plant, like a poinsettia, which could they keep it in the house? Sure. Will they get flowers again? Maybe.
Yeah.
Should they throw it out? Probably.
Yeah. So they are very short-lived. You could cut it. They're cute, and you could cut it back. And what I think's happening is it's browning and wilting. That could be fungal gnats eating the roots, but also watering from the bottom. If it's not pulling up all the water at the top, you're not getting watered all the roots. So bottom watering is problematic. And then if it's sitting in standing water, then those fungus gnats are having a field day. So
if you take a dry plant and try to bottom water it, you'll get some soaked up in the bottom, but it may take a very long time, if ever, for that upper water.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on. The main thing is it's just a short-lived plant.
Right. And enjoy it.
Yeah. Don't bottom water it, especially if it is then staying too wet, like if it's just standing water. And then, it's the gnats may be causing fungal root issues, but I have a feeling it's just the plant because I've seen this over and over. I've fallen for it. I've grown them and they do the same thing.
Right.
And I'm like, this time I'm good. Even under a grow light.
Yeah, they're just not really, and they're not big plants to begin with, but they're just not really suited for long-term.
No. I'm getting a little mad at the plant because I really like it because it's pink. Now I'm like, why can't it stay cute and small? Dang it.
That's how we think of our cats.
It was so cute. I had a cute little pink pot for it. It was in my plant room. I'm like, this is going to look darling. And of course I'm going to be able to grow it under this grow light. And then sure enough, it started getting like stretchy. I'm like, no, you don't. I cut it back. And it's like, I'm like, no, you don't. And then, it wore me down. Yeah. There's a lot of there's other plants with better pink foliage. All right. Next one. I have a 3-year-old bear's lime that I believe is sprouting suckers near the base of the tree. However, I haven't been able to find the graft on the trunk. They are very tall with tiny leaves and long thorns. Should I cut off Allison?
Yes.
There you go. I have a feeling I've trained Allison. I have a feeling when she's like, she knows what she's doing here. Cause I talk about suckers all the time. She knows what she's doing. She's like, I haven't been able to find the graft. I'm sure when she was looking for it, she was cussing me out going, Marlene says I'm supposed to find the graft. But you don't always find that graft.
And if you can't find it, it's based on the fact that these suckers are very different from the rest of the plant, tells you that unless it's you've been near a radiation plant recently, it's probably 99% it's the rootstock.
Yeah. There are other things. So if it's coming from the base and it looks different, like you said, And this looks very different. Tiny leaves, long thorns. That's very different. That sounds exactly like a root sucker. There's something else called a water sprout. And these are just random branches on a citrus that will go berserk. Something triggers them and they shoot off and they get very tall. The leaves look like the plant because it is the plant, but they have this weird, almost like triangle stem to them, and they won't really fruit. And they're acting almost like a sucker because so much energy is going into that one. So even if that's not the rootstock, cut that off as well.
Wow.
So,
It's so weird because that sounds exactly like one of the plants that's often used as a rootstock, which is, we used to call Panicetus trifoliata. Now they call it a citrus trifoliata.
well, that one,
But
yeah, that one because that has the 3 leaves on it.
right. So
Yeah.
that when you said the 3
Mhm.
leaves, I said, geez, it sounds so much like it. But
No, a triangle,
it's
not the leaves, the stem itself
Oh,
will have this
I
triangle
see.
appearance. Yeah, no, you're right. Most of the rootstock is like this trifoliate one. So a lot of
With
times
big giant thorns.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, anytime when in doubt, anything growing bigger, faster, different, cut it off. And you could do that year round. Yeah.
Yes.
You want to read the next question?
Sure.
Okay.
I have a Bradford pear tree in front of my condo that is at risk of being cut down by the HOA after a large branch fell on my roof. Can you please advise me on how to tell the HOA not to cut the tree down?
Yeah. Um,
that's a loaded question.
yeah. So I actually got back to her, and my canned answer for trees, and especially one like this, is I cannot get in between a tree dispute because legally this is out of my league.
Mhm.
So anytime someone asks me a tree question, even on good day, I'll say, this is what it looks like. But when in doubt, you need a certified arborist out there because you
Right.
can't tell the health of a tree just by looking at it. Now, what I also did tell her is, yeah, you're not going to win this case. That Bradford pear's coming out.
Right. And when I looked at it, that's sort of what my feeling was, not in the legal sense, but it's an HOA.
Yeah.
HOAs, you got to look at your HOA documents, but basically they're going to do what they're going to do, and it has nothing to do with logic. But Bradford pears are sort of invasive weed trees in a lot of sense. They smell bad when they flower, and there are so many options that are nicer than Bradford pears.
See,
and Frank,
I'm going to interrupt. Can
No,
I
go ahead.
interrupt? Okay, so Bradford pears, as far as fragrance, I mean, that would be like saying, no, you can't grow a corpse plant because it smells. You can't
well,
grow
I'm not saying you
ginkgo.
shouldn't grow it.
No,
I'm just
no,
saying
no.
they don't smell
See,
good.
no, they don't. But there's other ornamental pears. All ornamental pears smell, but it's like whatever. It lasts a few weeks in spring.
Right.
And invasive, they're not incredibly invasive like in the urban setting, but yes, they can get at, if they spread. The big problem with the Bradford pears is exactly what happened to her, is their branch structure.
Right.
They have included bark, which if you look at one, it's the limb structure is where they share bark. And that means each branch isn't growing independently. So you have this like a narrow crotch. Narrow crotch is bad because the weight. And then you have included bark where something happens and it's just a weak tree. And it already showed it fell on your roof. I mean,
Right.
what if the whole tree fell down? I think she'd be thinking different if it hurt someone. So I get it. You never want to lose a tree. You never want to lose a tree that's creating shade. It sucks, but they're not great trees.
And I would say that, but you mentioned that it could fall on it's already fell on your house somewhat. This is an opportunity. If the HOA if they want to cut the tree down themselves, boy, I would take them up on that because removing a tree isn't free. And if they grind the stump and you have a nice space to plant, I would take advantage of that and find something that, if you like the white, there are plenty of white flowered plants.
Yeah.
There's plenty of plants that are more adapted to our.
We just had an episode about trees,
right? Which gave me a couple of ideas for substitutes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's sad. You never want to see a tree, but I mean, I think that tree was already telling you, like, they're not good trees. And yeah, I think they get especially bad rap because of the fragrance of all the ornamental pears, but whatever.
Well, yeah, there's some beautiful flowering cherries that you can get, which
Yeah.
I like the
Ooh.
smell of. There's my favorite, which is, I don't know the common name, but the Cheonanthus virginicus and
Yes.
retusis.
Yeah.
What is
Geonanthus, that's the fringe tree, right?
right? We talked about that
Yeah.
last time. And I don't, there's two of them. And one of them,
Yeah.
I think the Chinese one, which is retusis, is more drought tolerant
Okay. Okay.
and super cold tolerant because
Yeah.
I had one growing at my neighbor's house in Long Island, zone 7. So,
Yeah.
and they smell really nice, and they're really a fun flower to look at up close. They're not, they're very
Yeah.
sort of fluffy
Yeah.
little
So there's
flags
other,
floating around.
yeah. I mean, it's sad. It's going to change the whole dramatic
Right.
look. But look I had a whole entire orchard rip out in front of my house. So I mean,
Yeah.
talk
And,
about changing
and,
the
and it's always good. I mean, I had a neighbor's tree one day fall down in my property, and this tree was big. And if it had fallen out down 90 degrees off, it would have hit my house, and
yeah.
I'd have a new house probably. Not
Or
by
you'd
choice.
be dead. So
Or
either
I'd be
way,
dead.
or
So
you'd be
yeah, I mean,
dead. Yeah.
Bradford
Yeah.
chairs aren't enormous, but
No.
if it's falling
Yeah.
and they want to pay for it, geez, I would
Yeah.
just take them up on it and solves all your legal issues.
There you go. All right, last question. What amendments would you recommend for junky soil? We live where rice fields are, and the soil is clay that gets large cracks in the summer. I do use my rabbit and chicken manure and spread it throughout the garden. This is from Joanna. Okay.
Clay is interesting. You know, I'm a potter now in my spare time.
Oh, yes.
And we learned a lot about the structure of clay
Mhm.
and why it works for pottery and why it can be both beneficial and problematic for a garden.
Yeah.
So clay is essentially little discs that stack upon each other, almost like little, speaking of today's lentil day, almost like little flat lentils. And when they stack, there's no room for air. It's easily compacted. And when it's dry, it's a result, since there's not a lot of air or water in it after it's dried, it becomes super hard, and you can break your shovel on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and the solution for that is ultimately more compost.
Yeah, more compost. Yeah, I remember when we were building our last house, and we had to bring in soil because they described the soil as highly expansive clay soil, which means in the summertime, huge cracks. So we had
Yeah.
to dig out 3 feet and then bring in 3 feet of soil because the foundation would crack because it was just going to swell and shrink so much. If you have a raised foundation with wood, wood shrinks and swells, but with concrete, you don't have that much give. So you get these huge cracks, and that's normal. And clay is great. If anyone's gardening clay, if we had all sandy soils, we'd be watering so much more. And there's more nutrients in clay. So it's good, but yeah, you're right. Compost is the way to go.
And clay does hold on to nutrients very well,
Mhm.
whereas obviously with sand, it
Yeah.
flows right through. So I mean, I guess having a garden which to me is too clay and very difficult to dig, I would say it's nice to have a nice balance between your clay and your sand and your loam. And
Mhm.
if we all could live in Eden, we'd have the ideal balance.
Yeah. So to get rid of the first and foremost is, and then a lot of people think, and we've talked about this, is you don't need a rototillin. Simply start by adding 3 to 5 inches of compost on top, or wood
Right.
chip, something during the summer to prevent that sun beating down and pulling that moisture out and causing those cracks. So when you do water, it's not going into the cracks. So the first and foremost is you don't even need to dig in and amend the soil. Just simply add compost, wood chips, something on top that's going to be a buffer that will break down. And then if you're planting, just put a little bit in each hole. And every year you plant, add twice. So it's a slow process. You don't need to add and rototill and all this. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be frank, even though there are times when you might want to till in, I would be so careful rototilling with clay because number one, if it's too hard, you're going to break your rototiller.
And your jaw, because it comes back and hits you in the jaw.
Oh yeah, it would be bad.
It would be
And
bad.
if your clay, if let's say it's a wet time of year
Yeah.
and the clay is getting mucky, if you rototill that, it's gonna just create a
Bricks.
disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Yeah. So no, I mean, remember my top 10 money wasters was a rototiller.
Yeah.
Because you just don't need it. So really just lay it on top, and it doesn't have to be compost, just horse manure if you have. Well, she mentions how she adds rabbit and chicken manure.
Right.
Yeah. That's
My
great.
guess is it's just not enough.
Yeah, that is a manure, but if you sprinkle it around, you're adding nutrients, which is fine.
Right.
But if you have it lived near a horse barn, they produce a lot of manure. Borrow that and lay
Yeah.
that on top.
The next best thing the only thing better than having a horse is having a friend with a horse.
Yeah.
Because that way you get the manure, but you don't have to clean out the stall,
Yeah.
the stable. So, I have a friend with a horse, and I can, I have all the
Yeah.
manure I want. And,
Yeah.
in fall, especially if you're not planting, it does take a couple of years, according to my friend, for the manure to break down.
Yeah. Ask for the
So
older stuff. Yeah.
you can't plant immediately, is her point.
Yeah. So because she mentioned chicken and rabbit, I went,
Mhm.
I know chicken is pretty strong, but I'm like, I'm not familiar with rabbit. So I sort of went down a rabbit hole. I didn't even plan that one. That one just came about. And just like anything, it's really hard to get exact numbers, but the percentage of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, apparently rabbit is really high. It's like
Oh.
2-1-1 almost. And then chicken is a like 1 point and then a 1 and then a 0.8 and 0.5. And then steer is mild, and then horse is a little less than chicken. So it's rabbit, chicken, steer and horse are actually pretty close together.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
What's nice about horse is that you do get, well, the downside is people say that sometimes weed seeds come with
Yeah,
the
they
horse
do.
because there's a lot of undigested
Yeah.
straw.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you get a lot of straw, which is sort of organic too.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's free, my gosh, that's great.
Oh yeah.
So, and then it was like, well, you hear about burning. And it's like, well, yes, the burning, because if you add manure that hasn't been broken down, it's strong in nitrogen
Right.
and it just cooks. But apparently cold manure is manure that comes from ruminant animals. So like cow, I always thought steer manure would be a hot manure, but technically no. But then I was reading and someone said, oh no, cold manure is when it's pelletized. So there's really not great. I mean, I got to do more information on this. So that, chicken though, across the board is hot manure, strong manure.
Right.
Rabbit is strong,
yeah,
but it breaks down slower, apparently, even though they're not ruminant animals, but it breaks down slower, maybe
the
because
chicken manure.
No, the rabbit manure.
Oh, the rabbit.
Yeah,
manure.
they say it's a cold manure, even though it's not a ruminant animal.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I got to find more information on this because it's across the board. But yeah, so rabbit, chicken, horse, steer.
And when your clay soil does tend to be a little more alkaline, so at least at the initial stage you put this in, you're neutralizing a little of that alkalinity too.
Yeah.
I think the issue ultimately is that if you want to plant right away, then you're better off putting a decomposed compost in.
Mhm.
Even leaves. I mean, I had in the community garden, they would just cover it with leaves in the fall. We just dig it in. We wouldn't sit there and worry that they're not broken up or that it's not decomposed yet. And the plants just grew phenomenally in that soil. So
Yeah, and I do want to just correction is, we're talking about soil fertility and soil structure. Two totally different things, but manure can over time aid in the change of structure. So structure is your clay, sand, silt, and how the aggregates are formed, creating drainage and then these large cracks. And over time, adding compost and organic material changes the structure.
Right.
And then manures will add fertility, i.e. nutrients, but because it is organic matter, and like you're talking about horse manure, you're adding organic matter. There's organic matter that it will. Compost is usually the way to go because you could apply higher amounts without detriment of changing the fertility too strong or too,
And I would venture to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that ultimately fertilizers are important, but nothing beats the right structure of your soil. If I had to choose between a low fertilizer soil and a super great structure soil, or should I say, and a high fertilizer soil with poor structure, I'll take the low fertilizer with a much better structure because that's so much easier to deal with.
I mean, both are of equal of importance. So you could say you
Right.
could grow plants in a poor structure soil if you have nutrients. You can't grow plants in anything if you don't have the nutrients.
Right.
But adding nutrients is much easier than
And that's what I'm
changing the
getting at.
structure. I know what you're getting at. I'm just trying to.
I mean, you can always fertilize, and there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with
Yes.
fertilizing your
No.
vegetable plants.
No, there's
But
nothing. No.
getting that soil structure. I mean, I lived again back. In case you didn't know, by the way, I lived on Long Island, New York.
No, is
And
that right? That's the first time I'm hearing about that, and I
yeah,
would have never
and
guessed from hearing you
you know,
talk that.
and I lived on an old potato farm because,
Oh,
as the song "Yes, We Have No Bananas" goes, I have a Long Island potato. Um,
I have
and
no idea what the hell you're talking about.
well, for those of us who are in our declining years, and the interesting thing is that when they built the houses, a lot of them just stripped off all that good soil.
Oh yeah.
And so what was left is really horrible New England. Yes, North Shore Long Island is geologically more like New England, rocky soil. And it took me, I'm going to say, a decade till my soil was really great
Yeah.
soil.
And
so
then you
it's a
moved.
slow process.
That's the sad part of being a garden. Then you move.
And then you move,
Then you move.
or in my case, you move into a new house. You're in your 60s, and then you say, "Oh, I'm going to be an old man by the time this is great soil,
Yep.
but someone will inherit it, and I'll look upon it from the land beyond and say, God could have been mine."
And then yell at them, going, "God damn, I can't believe they pruned that plant that way." And then
That's right.
Yes.
I'll haunt
Yes.
them in their
Yes.
garden shed.
Yes. Well, we better go because we've been going along on this one. I know. We're just talking. So
We just love talking plants.
I know we do. So if you have any questions, you could just email them to marlenetheplantlady@gmail.com. Of course, post them on my Instagram or my Facebook, which is Marlene the Plant Lady. Follow me there. Follow the show if you haven't, and please share the show. And of course, if you like it, give it a good rating, 5-star rating. It moves us up into the charts and people will find it. And then that way Bruce and I could talk more about plants, right?
Right. And spread the word,
Yeah, spread
Hey,
the word. And spread
Marlene,
the manure.
before-
Spread the manure.
Spread the manure,
and
because there's
spread the
nothing
word.
like spreading manure to
Yeah, don't spread the
world.
bullshit. Spread the manure.
Yes. Although you can spread the steer manure, but not the BS.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you do know I made a Instagram handle that says more manure, less bullshit.
Yes. Hey, Marlena, we allow now. You can always cut this now, but isn't there something happening soon at the UC Davis Botanical Conservatory?
Oh, the plant sale?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. October 25th, Saturday, the plant sale. And Bruce, are you going to be there helping out?
Well, unfortunately, I'll be back in the old country visiting my 96-year-old mom and going to Longwood Gardens in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, perhaps the most beautiful botanical garden in the country.
Yeah, I'll have to see pictures. Oh, and also we have a vanilla talk Thursday, October 16th at the conservatory on vanilla cultivation. My friend Alan is going to be talking about that. So we have the plant talk and the plant sale this month. So yeah.
And we have great plants for sale, really cool.
Yeah, Bruce has been helping out. Staghorn ferns.
Ferns.
Yeah.
Oh, we have staghorn ferns.
Staghorn ferns, yeah.
Coming out your ears, there's so many.
Yeah. All right, so let's wrap this up. Until next time, everyone, happy gardening.
We'll see you next time.